Hi everyone, welcome to Off the Podium. First time I have a duo that has joined me, because usually I have people, soloists or musicologists, people by themselves. Well, I have a duo today and I'm very excited to have them. Classique, right?
Perfect.
Hello.
Thank you.
Nice to be here with you.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting us.
Yeah, well, the first question, the origins of the group. We'll get to know you as well, but I want to know how this group got started.
Oh, like this one with you.
Well, Lupex and I met about 2 years ago. We were both working as singers. We're both opera singers, and we were working on cruise ships. And we met, and from there we started performing as a duo and kind of conceiving our own shows and having things written for our voices and seeing what was going to work the best for us. And we discovered that we had this mutual love of one particular singer from an American singer from the 20th century, and that is Mario Lanza, a great American tenor. And from that point, that's kind of where we were really inspired to take this duo to the next level and to start a recording project and to work on, performances. And we really want to bring back some of this music that Mario Lanza did.
Yeah, we were really impressed at the time, like how Mario Lanza was able to bring the classical voice or the opera, one could say, into a more pop atmosphere. People at that time, there wasn't really a big distinction between pop and classical, and he was probably the only one that was like, he cut through all the charts and everything, and he was literally a pop star.
Mm-hmm. Right, he sold millions of records and was number one on the pop charts in the 50s, and that was unheard of for a classical singer. Yeah. And so that was, a really big influence for us.
And that's really when we started to think about in which direction we wanted our scores, our arrangements to be based on, and which kind of repertoire we wanted to do, which is a very hard question for singers, like which repertoire suits you better, or which repertoire you want to do, But that's pretty much how it started.
Certainly, we want to have, we want to keep, true to our roots in opera, because we're trained in opera, and we both sung in different productions, whilst doing, some popular music with the classical voice. And that was our big inspiration.
Absolutely.
Well, you guys have such a flow right away, even with conversations. Sometimes you get duets or trios in the same room and they're talking and it's all over the place. You guys have such a natural flow. It's amazing. Even when you're talking, it's beautiful.
Thanks.
Mario Lanza, I never knew about, and I found out about him through your website. When I was going through the website and reading about you, I found out about him, and I'm glad you're doing this work. This is more of a personal question, and you don't have to answer, as I've said before, but is there more of a connection than just a duo here?
Yeah, we are a couple. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
We met on a cruise ship, and since we started the project, and we started a relationship as well.
Yeah.
Well, you talked a little bit about it, but why is this project important? Because, you get those hardcore classical musicians that say you have to do opera and you have to do the 21st century vocal repertoire. And sometimes the genres that come together and make something that's beautiful and unique are not as well respected by the hardcore classical musicians. Have you gotten this, or is it just me?
We really thought about that, and to be honest, it's a very hard question, because we also love to sing opera.
Yeah.
That's what we've studied and everything, and we still do it. We still sing in productions, and we absolutely love it. Uh-huh. But I think the main factor why we decided about those specific songs of this specific era, one could say, is that we want to bring this music to people that don't know, or it's, one could say that it's a bit more accessible. Mm-hmm. This kind of music is still opera, and it's still classical singing, at least the way we want to do it, the way we are organizing our arrangements. But people sort of connect these songs to their past, or they have some sort of connection with those songs. Meanwhile, opera, sometimes it can be hard. For example, if we want to record a CD of contemporary songs, or modern composers, it is really hard to cut through.
Yeah.
Sure, and also in terms of the market nowadays, it is better to be, well, not better, but in our experience, for us, it has been better to be more versatile. But like I said, we're still staying true to our classical roots, and we still sing very classically with our trained techniques.
Yeah.
And we try to do things that are exciting and are going to get people listening, whether that's, big high notes or, really nice pianissimi.
A different arrangement.
Exactly.
A different rhythm within the song. We can take a song and just make an arrangement of a tango.
Yeah.
Make a tango arrangement of that song, and people get excited with those things. And I think it has to do also with the response we got from the audience we performed for.
Absolutely. The power of the classical voice was, is undeniable. I mean, even Mario Lanza was able to bridge the gap there. But yes, we got a great response from audiences that weren't necessarily the most well versed in opera and classical music.
And I think it was quite surprising because, to be honest, we performed a bit of everything on especially on the cruise ships, because we had that opportunity. You can experiment a little bit, and we performed even musical theater and very famous musical theaters like Phantom of the Opera or Les Mis. And okay, people love it, but it was a different reaction when they listened to Mario Lanza. It was really like they really connected and felt something, and that's when I think that we clicked. Oh, that's what we need to do.
Absolutely. And that's when we knew we had to bring more of these songs back into, the playlists and get people listening to them regularly again. And the songs we do, they're not necessarily like forgotten songs. Many of them are very famous, but we'd like people to rediscover them, I guess, with our spin on it.
So you can say about Be My Love, for example, it was on the Billboard charts. It was a number 1 in the pop Billboard charts. It was the only classical song that made a number 1 into the pop Billboard chart, and that's unbelievable. At that time, there wasn't a distinction like nowadays that you have a Billboard chart for classical music and another one for pop. One could say that Mario Lanza had the same approach as pop stars do nowadays.
So why not bring that back,
Yeah, and that's your first song, right? That's your single as well.
That's our single we've released, Be My Love,
This has a very educational aspect to it. Have you thought about going out in the schools and outreach programs and stuff like this? I don't know how it works in Europe for this, but in the US, it's a big thing where you go out to the schools and educate kids. And I feel like your project specifically would be great educational. It could have a great educational component for the youth, for the future generations. Have you thought about that?
We could think about, to be honest, we haven't, because we just arrived in Germany a few months ago. So we are still a bit like off the wall in Germany. We're learning the language.
Sure. But yes, it does have great potential. Absolutely.
And of course,
actually, it's American music.
And it's American music and American history. Absolutely.
And it's great because even with adults, it also has an educational component to it, because, you bring back music that people maybe have not heard in a while, or have heard, but it's a new twist or a new style to it. Well, what is an American and a Brazilian doing in Germany, if you don't mind me asking?
Good question.
Well, we thought a lot about to which country to go, or...
Well, Luperci has lived all over the world. I've lived in Italy myself for the last 7 years, but Luperci has lived in...
Well, I've lived in Argentina, Uruguay, Scotland, Italy, and now Germany. But I think essentially what made us move to Germany is the love we have for Europe at the moment. We love the European lifestyle and the opportunities as well that you find here for classical music, because Europe is, within 5-6 hours you can travel around 7-8 countries.
Certainly, you can be everywhere.
And it's just at the time right now it's easier for us to go and make contacts and auditions and try to get to know people and get our music heard around here. But we do have an idea of moving to the US in the future, or it's a plan we do have.
Sure, absolutely. And the Germans especially, there's a great love of classical music here. And as demonstrated by the number of operas that go up and the free concerts all everywhere. And so that was a big factor as well. And that's like very inspiring to see a culture that's so musically active.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're also very active in outreach and, getting the kids into the theaters when they're young. And that's, that's when you have to start them as well. And
Germans have around 7,000 opera houses.
Wow.
The second place is the US with 1,000.
Well, I was going to ask, there's the American repertoire that you do, and what about some Brazilian repertoire? Is that going to happen?
We'd love to sing some Brazilian songs. We did on the ships, but in this CD, we don't have any. But we already have a project for the next CD, and we are planning to include a Brazilian song right there, one that the three tenors did in the famous 1991. And it's called Aquarela do Brasil, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful song. We're planning to. We have an arranger from Canada, actually.
Okay.
And he's really good, and we already told him about that. He was very excited, but it's different. It's hard because in Brazil, it's not really part of our culture, the classical music.
Yeah.
And it's such a shame because you find amazing voices or amazing instrumentists or instrumentalists or conductors, and it's a shame people really don't, especially with the times we're living now, with all the problems, the political problems. But one have to go out of their country to be able to do classical music.
Yeah, and Brazilians are so talented, in so many different ways, in jazz and the traditional music, so many, and also great athletes. I rarely say this because sometimes I don't have too many people who watch the same stuff that I do, but I watch mixed martial arts a lot, and Brazilians have so many great mixed martial artists. So I love. A dream of mine is to go to Brazil, really, because of the mixed martial artists more so than the musicians.
It's true.
The debut album, when is that coming out? For some reason, before we chatted, I thought the debut album came out because I heard your single and I was like, oh, okay, so it's out. But then I realized, I kept reading, I realized that it hasn't come out. So when is that?
Well, we are still in production, finishing up, and so we are anticipating it to come out this summer.
Okay.
Most likely July, August.
Okay.
And we're really looking forward to it, and we hope to share it with as many people as possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm very proud of it, and as we mentioned, we're working with an arranger from Edmonton, Canada, named Ben Christensen. He's extremely talented, just a fantastic guy. So happy to work with him.
And it was a hard decision with the repertoire. For example, last week we've just changed the last 3 songs of our CD because we heard some other arrangements, and so it's been really a big project for us. Mm-hmm. We put a lot of effort into it.
Sure, and the final the kind of the theme, I guess you can say, is actually songs that were featured in films.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them come from Mario Lanza films, others from other films that he didn't star in. But so we've got quite a variety ranging from the 1920s up to the 50s. And maybe, there was a song that was written in the 20s, but it didn't appear until the 50s in a film in a very different arrangement than the original. But there's so much great music from films, and the films really, especially the MGM musicals and that sort of thing, they really helped bridge the gap between classical and popular, because they reached a huge audience, and that's how some of these songs became, and people and singers became so famous. Not just Mario Lanza. There's so many great singers and actors and actresses from that period, from those Hollywood films, who were classically trained and singing in films.
Absolutely.
So how does the collaboration work between Canada and Germany now? What happens? What's the process?
Well, it's quite a big process actually, because we give him our ideas or the scores and, all the material we can give him. And then he comes up with the arrangement, he records with the musicians there, and then he sends it back to us. And then we record here in Germany, send the track back to him.
Oh, I
then
see.
Then he mixes and masters, and then we have the track ready.
Wow. It's a big process, and it must be tough. Have you even met the arranger or the person who's...
Personally?
No, not personally. We have a mutual friend, a violinist,
Yeah.
a very well-known American violinist, and he's the one who introduced us.
Mm-hmm.
And but we've only seen each other on Skype
Yeah.
so far. But someday we really
Yeah.
it's great to take a trip there,
Absolutely. Yeah.
visit, maybe do some recording in his studio.
Yeah, it's amazing because I talk to quite a few artists at this point on this podcast, and I realized what the technology has done for the music world. It's really crazy because, my last guest was saying that our conversation wouldn't have even happened if it wasn't for this, and now you're doing a project, you have never met the person, but you have mutual friends, so it's crazy how beneficial it is in a lot of ways.
It opens up a lot of doors
Yeah.
and gives you even more opportunities. And,
Yeah.
and the world is small, I guess.
And
So-
also within the music industry, you have so many services, one could say, that you can discover so much music.
Yeah, yeah.
You can discover music from any era or any composer.
Yeah.
You can find anything you want really. And it's amazing. We discovered so many things that influenced on our CD as well.
Mhm.
Stuff that we didn't even know. Songs that we are not familiar with. And we were like, oh my God, that's a jam.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
no one else has done that?
Mm-hmm.
So why as well, the internet has definitely helped us deciding about a couple of songs.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you, you mentioned Brazil and classical music, but you grew up in Brazil and you were introduced to classical music. How did that work?
Yeah, that was quite unusual. I'm from a small city outside of Rio de Janeiro called Petrópolis. And fortunately enough, that city is very famous for its boys choirs.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time I was 6 or 7 years old, and I was in college, and there was this choir that was next to the college, and every year they had auditions for the kids that wanted to go. You could just pop in there and sing a little bit, and if you were good enough, they would take you into it, and you didn't have to pay anything, and you would get a very good classical music education. And you know how kids are, they see all the other kids going to do something, and one day I just went there myself, and I passed the test, and I stayed in that choir for 10 years, and I have to say, even though I've done university, I have done my master, but that choir was the best music education I've had so far, because it was very tough.
Yeah.
Indeed. Like with 12 years old, you had to sight read Schoenberg, for example. But that paid off,
Yeah.
Today, I have a very good sight reading because of that.
Yeah.
And we traveled the whole world. We sang for Pope John II
Yeah.
in Rome. And it was amazing. And then from there, when I was 16, 17 years old, I've had a masterclass, an opera masterclass. Since then, I've never sung opera before. We were classically trained, but we were singing Bach or Monteverdi and all the classical rap apart from opera. And I've had a masterclass, an opera masterclass, and the teacher really captivated me. And I was impressed how he was able to produce so much sound with his voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I started university in opera in Rio. So I did my 4 years there. And then I moved to Argentina, finished my university there, had some opportunities. I sang a couple of operas, sang the Magic Flute, then L'Elisir d'Amore. And then from there, I had the opportunity to go to Scotland to do my master's. I was offered a scholarship
Mm-hmm.
in the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, and I couldn't refuse.
Yeah.
I had to leave all my life behind, but I could not refuse. It was an amazing opportunity. In fact, the college was just elected the third best college on the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's impressive.
It was an amazing education, I have to say.
Actually, the classical music scene in the U.S., from what I understand, is probably better than Brazil, from what it sounds like.
Yes,
what was your
for sure.
for sure.
what was your start? How was your start? How did you come about doing this?
Well, it's quite a miracle actually, because I grew up in a tiny little town where there are more cows than people. But it's a beautiful town. It's a historical town in New York. It was the site of one of the battles of the Revolutionary War. It's absolutely stunning. But that said, I had my parents would take me to see some shows, and there was always an interest in that. And I was very lucky in high school to have three very, very fantastic music teachers. And at that time, I was playing clarinet. I was very focused on that. I really enjoyed that. Music was a big part of my life. I was doing all the festivals, but as a clarinetist. And then I just discovered I had a voice. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I loved singing in the choir, and then I realized I have a voice. I can I can do something with this. And then so I started looking for CDs, and I wanted to hear something with more classical voice. And I ordered this Mozart CD, and it came, and it was just arias from different operas, a compilation. And I heard it, and I was hooked. Yeah. I mean, that was the first time I'd ever really heard anything from an opera. The classical voice, and I was just floored. I was absolutely hooked. So from there, I went to pursue a degree in music education. But when I arrived at the school, I went to the Crane School of Music in New York. Yeah. But when I arrived, there was more opera to be heard, more experiences to be had. And I said, no, I really want to perform or do something entirely different, So this is the path that I'm going to take. Yeah. And once I finished my undergraduate, I had this idea of Europe, and I'd always, my ancestors came from Naples, to Ellis Island, and so I knew all that. And this idea was always in the back of my head. And I thought, well, Italian is the most important language for opera and the most useful. Mm-hmm. So why not go to Italy and learn Italian? And from there, I stayed in Italy and started doing quite a few kind of recital work and things like that. Mm-hmm. Eventually some more operas. And then I found a fantastic teacher who I trained with for the last few years. And that's really kind of been my story. And then there was this opportunity to travel the world on a ship and sing, doing what I love. And so I jumped at that, and that's where I met Luperci.
The style, the genre, the subgenre, whatever you want to call it, that you work on. I don't want to name the artists, but who are some inspirations other than Mario Lanza that have inspired you, or people might know their work?
For me, there's in particular one soprano who really just was able to do it all and just encompasses everything for me, and that's Anna Moffo. Mm-hmm. And she was American, but then married an Italian TV producer, and she had her own TV show. But she sang in, many, many operas. She was phenomenally talented. And then she had her own show where she was like a comedienne, and she did sketches. And she also would do some musical theater and some operetta and some acting sketches. And so she was able to really do it all. And so she's definitely a big influence for me.
Absolutely. I think also coming a bit more to nowadays, one could say about Pavarotti and how he was able to reach as much people as possible. And I think some modern groups or some contemporary groups are also very good. They have, like, for example, Il Divo. Mm-hmm. They have some very good arrangements, and it's always a hard question, like, what's your genre? And people say, you're classical crossover, you are opera singers, or we don't really like to put ourselves into one genre. Category, we like to do what we love and the best we can do it. But we have some amazing arrangements from Il Divo, or
certainly, and Pavarotti was certainly the person that really opened up the door for this for these kind of groups. His Pavarotti and Friends concerts, he was able to reach so many people like no one has ever done before. He was he kind of followed in Mario Lanza's footsteps in terms of reaching a more popular audience. While Mario Lanza did mostly films and concerts, he did a few operas on the stage, and obviously Pavarotti's career was mainly on the stage. Yeah. But he did a lot for classical music because he got people in there listening to it. He got people to watch the concerts, and and it doesn't matter how he did it because now he's a household name.
Yeah, he is.
And people know him not for the pop songs he's done. People know him for Nessun Dorma by Puccini. People know him for that kind of repertoire because he was able to open the door and get them to listen to what he was doing.
Absolutely, and also Bocelli. Even though Bocelli is more famous because of his pop songs, but he's still an amazing artist, and what he was able to accomplish within his life is
absolutely
unbelievable.
He's done a lot, and he does do like opera, straight opera. He does quite a bit of that too as well. So
and these artists, the inspiring thing about Pavarotti, for example, is that it seemed like he was there are some people who will go on stage and do a piece, but you're like you're doing this because you're trying to win over some fans. Every time I would hear Pavarotti, I would feel amazed at how much energy and passion he brings, even to things that maybe might not be his favorite, or maybe they are, but he just brings his everything to every performance, and it's inspiring to see because, like I said, I've been to many performances. You hear a great recital, and then at the end, it's some maybe a pop song or a pop piece or whatever you want to call it, and the performer doesn't give it everything, and you notice that it's not. So it's important to bring 100% to all the different pieces that you're doing because the audience realizes that and they notice even if they're not musicians.
Absolutely. And with Pavarotti, that's the Italian charm as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I lived in Italy for so many years and they're real, Italy's kind of my second home and they are really passionate about everything they do. And so that, that translates into everything.
And he was able to bring that with his voice. He was even criticized because he was not a good actor, or he could not really portray the character as it should be, but he was able to bring every emotion with his voice. You close your eyes and you can hear absolutely every emotion on his voice.
And you need to do that as a recording artist. You need to be able to do that as well because there is no visual stimuli. There's just your voice. So.
But also as a recording artist, it must be tough to bring everything to that to the recording because you have so many different things that could be edited out. And how does that work? Maybe a breath feels natural in that moment and the audience would love that if it was live, but then you have a recording which takes that out and cleans it out. How do you feel about those things?
Sure. It's important to go with something that, that's organic and that you really feel. It's much more interesting to hear something that's emotionally charged than technically perfect. I mean, you need both, but I'm going to pick something that moves me, honestly.
Passion over technique.
Absolutely. Well,
And, at the end of the day, when you are in a recording studio, if you are thinking about how well you're singing or that you have to reach this note or that note, it's definitely not going to come out as beautiful as it could be. You really have to put the emotion into it and think that you are in a performance, think that you are in a theater or wherever you're performing. You really have to give 100% in the recording studio because also that it's gonna stay there for your whole life. That's a legacy you're gonna leave. One could say.
Certainly, your job as an artist, and it's also a great pleasure as well to do it. Is to make the music jump off the page and to live it, to live every second of it.
Try to understand what the composer wanted on every note. A good composer, he doesn't write just for the sake of writing. There is something within every note, within every interval, and your job as a performer is to try to understand that and portray what the composer wanted. You also have to respect. Of course, you want to put your own spin, you want to do your own arrangement, but you do have to respect the composer. You have to respect what the composer wanted to achieve, because otherwise you're not really singing that song. You're just doing something that it's your personal flavor, is not what the composer wanted.
Well, these are all great things, and I think if young musicians were to listen to this, they would take a lot from it, because it's very important to think about all these things and to bring the passion and energy. And I could hear it from the recordings. I went on YouTube and listened to a few of the recordings, and then I of course listened to your single, which was great. What other projects are you involved with? I know you're busy with this project, but what other things are you doing now or pursuing now?
Well, we are already thinking about a Christmas EP.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So something that's gonna highlight our voices and that people are gonna enjoy at that time of year.
Yeah.
So that would that'll be a short project, and then another long-term CD project.
Yeah. We're thinking about either a string quartet or a string quintet this time, and we're still not sure about repertoire. It's a big discussion we have every day.
Yeah.
But
there's a lot of great music out there. What can I say?
Yeah.
And also we are still pursuing our own personal things, our performing on operas and everything.
Mm-hmm.
We still do that here in Germany, and that's also we cannot stop doing that because we love opera.
Of course,
we love performing.
Yeah.
That's just something else. Not that we are prioritizing anything. For us, both things are very important.
Yeah. Absolutely.
How are you taking auditions now, and how is the process for that in Germany to be in an opera?
The auditions here are very different from the United States. In the United States, you can just write to the theater yourself. You can email the theater and ask for an audition, and even if you don't have an agent or if you're not represented by someone, you can go and audition. Sometimes not for the main roles, but the secondary roles or covers one. Well, I don't know how you say that in the United States. Yeah. You can go and audition for covers, which is a great way to enter in a big theater, in a prestigious theater. Here in Germany is slightly different. They do have an amazing classical music scene, but it is much more closed.
It's accessible through agents. Yeah, absolutely.
So you have to audition for an agent. Then that agent will propose you to the theater.
I see.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Well, that's
which is a different system, but it's not better or worse, but it's just different.
Yeah, every country is very different. I mean, the UK is even quite different. Italy is quite different.
Yeah.
So.
Every place has the rules and regulations.
It does. Yeah.
And right now we are on the German trying to learn.
Exactly.
German.
The one rule here is you must speak German.
Yeah.
So one thing about singers, they know so many languages, or at least they understand, or they know how to pronounce. How many languages do you guys speak? I assume at least 2 for each of you.
I speak Italian fluently and a bit of French, and now my German is slowly but surely arriving. Luperci has a few more on the list.
I speak fluently Portuguese, Spanish, French, Italian, English, and now on German. And I can read on Russian.
Oh, wow. That's impressive. I was going to ask about another typical question of mine is what hobbies do you have outside of music, if any?
Cooking and baking. I love creating in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It's always been a great passion of mine. And then I guess salsa dancing.
Wow.
Yeah. But, dancing is as well. It's in a way, it's kind of related, but it's so much fun. And I love Latin American music.
Yeah.
And I really...
Well, me as a good Brazilian, I love soccer. And I don't miss any game. But I think after we've done a couple of cruises, I also a new hobby that we both got is try to visit new cities and appreciating new cultures as well. Mm-hmm. It's amazing too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you get to know a different culture and why someone behaves that way or their humor, and that's really a hobby. And
traveling is fascinating, and it really changes your perspective on everything. And we've been very lucky. We've been almost on almost every continent.
Wow.
And we've seen a lot of different cultures and met a lot of different people. And with our jobs on the cruise ship, it was great because you'd wake up in the morning in a new port, and you might have done a little bit of research on it. You might know kind of where to go, where not to go, but you never know what's going to happen that day. Yeah. And sometimes, and those are the best days because the best things happen, the most exciting things happen, and you meet people and have these experiences that are just, there's you can't put any price on them.
Absolutely.
They're really, we've been very lucky with that, and so it's definitely remained one of our hobbies. Kind of, going even from here, going out to visit, cities in the countryside here. Getting to know these little cities and their inhabitants as much as possible. Yeah. It's such a joy.
Well, it's been great chatting with you guys. Anything that we missed? Anything that you want to share before we end? Obviously, check out the debut album. That's the thing.
Absolutely, yeah. Everyone have to check out our new CD coming up. Mm-hmm. But thank you so much for inviting us.
Thank you.
The opportunity to.
It was great.
Talk about our lives.
Yeah, and I usually, especially recently, I've just been taking some recommendations because I have someone who comes in and then they email me or I email them and I ask them for some people to recommend. But with you, it was interesting because I actually reached out, I think.
Yeah,
I think I saw something on Twitter or something. I don't even know what happened, but I found that interesting. I was like, this would be good people to talk to. So that's how it happened. But
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anyways, it was great chatting with you. Hopefully, we'll have you back after you release the CD or maybe the Christmas single or the EP that comes out. We'll have you back.
Fantastic. We'd love to be back.
The CD will be coming up in August,
okay.
Hopefully. But we do have one more single coming up in the next few weeks, actually.
Okay.
It's a tango, very exciting.
Okay. Well, great chatting with you. Thank you so much for doing this, and talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.